Joining us now for more reaction is Dawie Rood, founder, director, and chief economist at the Efficient Group, as well as political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng. Good afternoon to both of you. Thanks very much for your time. Let me start with you, Dawie, if I may. The rand was steady in the morning. It weakened significantly 30 minutes after it was becoming clear that this speech won't be delivered. And I'm told the markets are now in a free fall. No surprises there, really.
Yes, well, I'm afraid I'm looking at the financial markets now. The rand is much weaker, and the equity markets, which was a little bit up during the early morning hours. But what really concerns me is the bond market. The capital market is taking quite a knock. And the capital market, that is where the Minister of Finance funds most of his borrowing. That is down quite a lot, and it has been down quite a lot for the last couple of weeks. So that is something that we need to be extremely concerned about.
And of course, I mean, a big part of that is the fact that, as the Director General reminded us during that briefing, that after the budget, there's meant to be a roadshow, and bondholders are a big part of that.
Yes, indeed. And the bondholders, of course, they look at the budget and see what the requirements are, not only for this financial year, but for coming financial years as well. And now we simply do not know. And the financial markets, they do not like uncertainty. Rather give them bad news, do not give them uncertainty. If I may make another comment that I think it's important. For you?
Yes, Dawie, go ahead.
Okay, there's a document doing the rounds which is supposed to be the budget speech, and somebody sent it to me, and I glanced through that. And according to, if that is the budget speech, it doesn't really matter, but basically what it tells me is that they want to use this 2% increase in the VAT, or they wanted to use that to fund the salary bill, or the increase of the salary bill. Now, that is something that I think everybody should be very concerned about, because the civil servants is one of our biggest expense item, and they're mostly, not always, mostly overpaid and mostly underworked. But what really concerns me is that according to this document, which is supposed to be the speech of the Minister of Finance, is that they expect the debt levels of the state to keep on going up. Now, this has been, the so-called consolidation of debt has been postponed for many years. Every time they say we're going to get debt down, but not yet, only next year. And the same happens this year. The point is that the fiscal accounts has reached a point that where we are in very, very deep trouble. And the Minister of Finance knows this, and there are three potential taxes that you can increase. Personal income taxes, which is just not possible, because if you increase that, you're going to collect less. Company taxes, you can't do that, because if you do that, become less competitive. And the only remaining tax that you can increase is VAT. They've done that, but of course you have to pay. You are going to pay a price for that, because it will be inflationary, it will be regressive and all of that. The point I want to make is that we have been painted into a corner by the ANC government, and there's only one option left. And that is to spend less money. And we've reached that junction. And that's the important point that I think we all have to understand, that we cannot afford this massive state machinery. We must spend less. The money is finished and clear. It is not possible to extract more taxes out of this economy. And I must applaud the DA, which really disappointed me the last couple of weeks. But I must applaud the DA for standing firm and saying no more tax increases. That was the right decision.
Well, that speech, of course, remains embargoed. We were reminded a short while ago, but you're correct. I mean, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, did say that that was only one of the issues. There were several other issues, and as he called them, innovative ways that are pro-growth that need to be pursued. But Asanda Ngoasheng, there is an apparent immaturity, and I would dare say tardiness even, in how this matter has been handled. That, I think, is abundantly clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we shouldn't be too surprised that this has happened for two reasons. One is this is the first GNU budget speech that they've had to put together and come to an agreement. And we're dealing with political parties that, while they often are able to find each other on certain issues, they're not always able to find each other, even in terms of their own policies that they promise their voters and one vote on. There were, there are gaps within that. And so this is what is beginning to show for us at this point in time. I think what's also interesting to observe is that there is a super parliament that's emerging where some people are basically getting super votes within parliament. So those who disagree with certain things are now in a position to shut everything down potentially in a way that wasn't able to happen before. And so we need to have a conversation about the balance of having a GNU and its implications for transparency in parliament and equal participation by all members of parliament, regardless of political party size. And so there are implications for our governance systems in how things have happened today that we need to be watching out for. I also just want to say that I don't for 1 second believe that the DA was necessarily the one that stopped the 2% increase. I think that's politicking on their side. I think they have essentially been disappearing within the ANC with jokes about Steenhuisen being Comrade Steenhuisen and people even putting him in ANC clothing. And so they were looking for any opportunity, and we're going to take any opportunity to try and stand out and revive that blue brand so that they stand out and are seen as separate from the ANC. If you listen to what the Patriotic Alliance minister said, he said that there were discussions with everyone. If you listen to what the Minister of Finance said, it doesn't sound to me like it is necessarily true what the DA is claiming, but of course we don't know, and we won't know until we have evidence otherwise. I think also that what's sad for me is that we are now basically running around like headless chickens when the people who stole money from this country, the people who are alleged to have been part of wide-scale state capture, sit in parliament, some of them members of the MKP, some of them members of the ANC. They sit in parliament with those allegations, and they sit potentially with our money. If we got back our money from every single corrupt politician that stole our money, we would not be running around trying to increase VAT, which is going to have serious implications not only for our economy in general, but for the ability of poor people to be able to afford anything in this country when food is already expensive and everything else is already expensive. And we have, Dawie was speaking about that leaked supposed budget speech. And I was horrified to find that our government potentially prioritized giving above inflation increases for social grants, and then turned around and wanted the same people to have less money by taking 2% VAT, which does not make sense at all. Why would you give people free money and then turn around and take that very same free money? It cancels each other out. And so there are some financial principles that are not in place, and it is unacceptable what has happened, because it sounds to me like it's creative accounting, and we really deserve better as South Africans, including deserving better from political parties like the DA, claiming things without being able to provide us the proof. This is not the moment to be, doing fist pumping. This is not the moment to be claiming victories, because nobody won today.
I mean, we have reports, we've got court cases, we've had commissions of inquiry taking us through or revealing to us in greater detail the impact of corruption, the looting of our resources, and the like. Now, Dawie, I mean, the DA is going to be the deal breaker. I mean, it's going to be are going to be the ones who will, the ANC will have to, or the ANC minister will have to agree with on a way forward. Now, their leader, John Steenhuisen, in that impromptu briefing earlier, talked about all sorts of pathways to creating jobs, to growing the economy, but pointing out or saying that up until now, they haven't discussed the issues on a granular level. But what would you understand to be the innovative ways that will lead, that should be pro-growth that he was talking about?
Yeah, I can just say that I also received a message from the leaders of some of the other political parties. We're giving the DA the credit, or if we should give the credit, it's apparently not only the DA that was opposed to this 2% increase. Some of the other political parties were very much against this as well. Yes, there are many things that we can do to get this economy to grow, and I think the political parties should talk about this. What can be done to get this economy to go? But remember, the budget is of course it is about economic growth, and it's of course about finding a balance between all sort of requirements, but the budget primarily is about where the money comes from and where the money goes to, and can we go on this current trajectory. So the budget must ask, and especially in recent years, and the more so as we go forward, is what are we going to do to fix the debt trajectory? And that is the main question that the budget, that the Minister of Finance must ask now. And the only answer that there obviously is now is for the state to spend less money. There are many other things that can be done to get this economy to grow. We can talk about labor legislation, we can talk about all sort of other things, yes. But primarily what this budget was about was the sustainability of the fiscal trajectory. And we've reached the end of that line. And we all have to understand this. It's nothing to do with ideology. It's nothing to do about various policies regarding growth policies or whatever the case may be. This is simple, straightforward finance, and the financial reality is that we've reached the end of the line. We have to cut back on state spending. The economy simply cannot carry this massive tax burden anymore.
Asanda, obviously big lessons here about how to run with this government of national unity concept going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always going to happen that we were going to have these situations that were going to put us in such uncomfortable and problematic states, because this is, in organizational development, they talk about it as the norming, storming, phase. And so they are coming together. They are trying to build a government that's able to speak with one voice and engage. And I think, over the past kind of 2 weeks, and even the actual period that they've been at GNU, they have had some glitches, but they've also had some good wins, thinking about the ways in which they've handled the expropriation without compensation, speaking with one voice, engaging much better with the DA not doing its usual pulling away, and other political parties falling in line. But this was going to happen, that we were going to have situations where these things were going to come to a head. I think it's interesting that it was noted that it was the MK and the EFF who raised concerns about their suspension, showing us that they're trying their level best to play that opposition role. And of course, as has been said, there are various people who have disagreed to various aspects of this budget. But I also think, look, despite everything and its implications, it is also a healthy and a good thing that in this country, when people do not agree, who are appointed by us to make difficult decisions, they do call it a day and they do request time to go back and think about it. You'd rather have that than a budget being pushed through simply because this was the date that was put forward. And so there are some good that's coming out in terms of health of democracy, health of systems, but there's also some bad that's coming out that's showing that this is a maturing democracy and this is a complex arrangement, this GNU, with a number of political parties that are never going to agree on everything. And they need to learn and figure out how to build consensus, and also how to not showboat each other and showmanship each other at every turn, because that is what leaves a bitter taste in South Africans' mouths when we are facing such levels of uncertainty, considering everything that's going on in the US. We need a stable government. We need a government that's clear and honest and open, and that speaks in a united voice. Otherwise, we are also going to be sitting with this anxiety about what may happen next, which doesn't help anybody.
Well, it is apparent that, the ANC didn't give much thought to the other parties. Really, it cared probably a lot more about the DA, given their numbers. Quick last parting shot from you, Asanda. Do you think this is going to weaken or strengthen the other parties that are not in the GNU, like your EFFs and your MK parties?
Well, I think, as I said, the DA has been on back foot in the sense that it has felt like, I think it's being swallowed by the ANC, having to swallow their pride and say that, expropriation without compensation is a good thing and is important. I watched the press briefing yesterday where the Minister of Agriculture did something that was unprecedented and stated very openly that transformation in the agricultural sector needs to happen, which is something that the DA has never been able to do. And so there are a lot of compromises that are happening, and there are fears that within these compromises, as the government becomes more a government of national unity and less a coalition of different political parties, that the political party identities are going to disappear. And so if we look at the next municipal elections and we look at 2029 being around the corner, political parties are having to constantly navigate this balance of constantly being able to be seen as independent brand while also delivering a cohesive government that sounds like it's one political party, even though it's multiple political parties. And I think, the ANC in this run potentially may have been dribbled by the fact that they're used to governing as themselves. And even though they've always had one member of opposition in their cabinet, it's very clear that they're not used to sharing, consulting at this in-depth level. But there is also some validity to what the minister said around whether they are able to share absolutely everything ahead of time and what they can and can't share, because a 2% increase in VAT is a big deal on the markets, and the insider trading is a real thing. And so it's a very, very tricky balance that they have to do in terms of when to consult, how to consult, and how much information to give. This is a lesson for all of us in organizational development, in building brands, in building organizations, and in building unity within organizations where there is a diversity of thought, of voice, of culture, and everything in between. So this is yet another beautiful South African experiment that will cost us in some aspects, but also may win us, some kudos in some aspects, because we are competing with the US, which right now is under the craziest level of state capture by one individual. And so the bar is very low.
Beyond that, Dawie, beyond the politics, beyond the dipping of the rand, in the immediate future, are there other consequences or repercussions of these today's developments that you think we are yet to have a full appreciation of?
Yeah, I agree with what Asanda said now. I think this today is one of the most exciting days that I've been analyzing the budget literally for more than 30 years. I never thought anything like this could happen. And I really think today is perhaps more good news than bad news. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty, and we see that on the financial markets. But the good news is that we've had mostly an ANC government that caused absolute immense damage to the South African economy at various levels. And today was a day when the ANC ran into a brick wall. Today was the day that the ANC got egg all over their face. Today is the day that the ANC realizes all of a sudden they are not the majority party anymore, and they cannot do what they've been doing up to now, and that they have to listen to the opposition parties. And hopefully, and this is really my hope, hopefully they will mend their ways and start changing policy and put the South African economy on a growth trajectory, because we simply cannot go on the way that we have been the last 30 years. We need to change track, and perhaps today is a day for that. So I'm actually quite hopeful. Today is a day quite disruptive, quite exciting, but also a day that I believe could be a turning point for the South African economy.
Dawie Rood, Asanda Ngoasheng, thank you to both of you for your time and for your insights, but also for being so patient given how this afternoon panned out.